Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council and tried not to let her hands shake. Around her, the massive chamber stretched up into darkness. Floating platforms held representatives from 847 different species. Some looked like crystals, others had too many arms or eyes or both. A few were just clouds of gas contained in force fields. Sarah took a deep breath and began her speech. She had practiced it 1,000 times. Honored council members, humanity requests full membership in the galactic community. We have completed our 50-year probationary period. We have followed all protocols. We have contributed to 3 joint scientific projects and 2 humanitarian missions. We believe we are ready. A sound rippled through the chamber. It took Sarah a moment to recognize it. Laughter. They were laughing at her. The Vartech Archon spoke first. His voice sounded like breaking glass. Ambassador Chen, your species is charming, but you are children. Your technology is 500 years behind ours. Your ships barely travel faster than light. Your weapons are projectiles and explosives, chemical reactions. We stopped using such things 3,000 years ago. Sarah felt her face grow hot. With respect, Archon, our technology works. We have proven ourselves capable of nearly destroying yourselves, interrupted a Kramathi scholar. She had 4 arms and too many fingers. You fought 2 global wars. You created weapons that could end all life on your planet. You poisoned your own atmosphere. You did all this before you even reached your own moon. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Sarah looked down at her papers. Every word on them suddenly felt hollow. A voice slithered into her mind. The Sarl were telepathic. Their representative did not speak aloud. Your species feels too much. You are driven by emotion, fear, anger, love. These things cloud judgment. They lead to mistakes. We have watched you for decades. You are not ready. The Kethri representative stood. He was massive, covered in scales, with eyes that glowed orange. The Kethri were warriors respected throughout the galaxy. Sarah felt a flutter of hope. The humans have courage, he said. His voice rumbled like thunder. They do not give up easily. This is admirable. Sarah's hope grew. But courage without wisdom is foolishness. The Kethri continued. They are too young, too reckless. They need more time to mature. Perhaps in another century they will be ready. The hope died in Sarah's chest. The Archon's voice rang out. The Council has made its decision. Humanity's application for full membership is denied. You will retain observer status. You may reapply in 100 standard years. This session is concluded, Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to scream that they were wrong, that humanity deserved better, but she was a diplomat. So she bowed her head and said, "Thank you for your consideration." She left the chamber with her small delegation following behind. Nobody spoke until they reached their ship. It was small compared to the other vessels docked at the council station. It looked primitive, ugly. Sarah had never noticed before. They didn't even consider it, said James Park, her assistant. He was young and angry. They made their decision before you even spoke. They think we're jokes, added Dr. Rachel Torres. I heard the Kramathi feeds. They're making memes about us. Persistent primates is trending across 6 sectors. Sarah stood at the window and looked out at the stars. Earth was 3 weeks away at their ship's best speed. Other species could cross the same distance in days or hours. Everything about humanity was slower, weaker, less advanced. Ambassador? James asked quietly. What do we do now? Sarah pressed her hand against the cold glass. Out there, millions of species lived and thrived. They had technologies humans could barely imagine. They had wisdom from thousands of years of civilization. They had everything humanity lacked, but they did not have Earth. They did not have the spirit that made humans climb every mountain, explore every ocean, reach for every star. They did not understand what it meant to be human. We go home, Sarah said softly. We tell them what happened. And then we work. We improve, we grow. And one day we'll come back here and they won't laugh anymore. 100 years is a long time, Rachel said. Sarah smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone making a promise. Then we'll make every year count. They think we're nothing. They think we're weak and emotional and primitive. Maybe they're right, but we're also stubborn, and we never learned when to quit. The ship left the station and headed toward home. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued its business. They discussed trade agreements and border disputes. They shared jokes about the humans who thought they could sit among the great civilizations. None of them knew that in 6 months, their entire galaxy would face something that would make them remember this day. None of them knew that the primitive, emotional, chemical weapon-using humans would become the only thing standing between them and complete extinction. None of them knew that. They should have taken humanity more seriously, but they would learn. The galaxy always learned eventually. The distress signal came from the outer rim at 0400 hours, Council Standard Time. 3 colonies in the Tertian sector had gone silent within 2 hours of each other. No warning, no explanation, just silence. At first, the Council thought it was a technical problem. Communication arrays failed sometimes, especially in the frontier regions. They sent repair ships. The repair ships never reported back. Then 5 more colonies went dark. Then 12. Then 23. The pattern spread like disease across the star maps. The Vartech dispatched scout ships to investigate. The scouts had sensors that could detect a single atom across a light year. They could see through planets and read energy signatures from different dimensions. They were the best scouts in the galaxy. None of them returned. The Council began to worry. Finally, an automated probe survived long enough to send back footage. The transmission was broken and corrupted, but what it showed made the Council's blood run cold. Every species that had blood anyway, they came from nowhere. They appeared in normal space like wounds tearing open in reality itself. The probe's sensors could not properly capture them. They seemed to exist partially outside normal space and time. The Kremati scientists called them devourers because there was no other word that fit. They were massive. Each one was the size of a moon. They moved in swarms of hundreds, sometimes thousands, and everywhere they went, they consumed. Stars dimmed as the devourers fed on their energy. Planets became hollow shells, drained of everything that made them alive. Space stations vanished. Ships were torn apart not by weapons, but by something worse. The devourers simply unmade them. The footage showed a Vartech colony world. 10 billion crystalline beings lived there. The devourers descended like a dark cloud. When they left 3 hours later, the planet was a dead rock. Not destroyed. Just empty, drained, silent. The Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in 500 years, every single member species attended. This was not a political crisis. This was survival. The Sarl tried to communicate with the Devourers using telepathy. Their most powerful mind speakers reached out across the void. 3 of them went insane instantly. They screamed about the void screaming back. About hunger that had no end. About darkness that thought. The Kremati tried scientific analysis. They studied the Devourers' movements and energy patterns. They built quantum models and predictive algorithms. Nothing worked. The Devourers did not follow any known laws of physics. The Vartech tried their solar lance fleet. It was legendary. 40 ships that could destroy planets. They engaged a small group of Devourers in the Kappa sector. The battle lasted 7 minutes. 38 solar lance ships were destroyed. The other 2 retreated. Energy weapons passed through the Devourers like they were not there. Kinetic weapons missed impossible targets that phased between dimensions. Nuclear weapons detonated harmlessly against creatures that existed partially outside space-time. 3 weeks after the first attack, 40 star systems had fallen. Trillions were dead. The Council's mighty civilizations, species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, were helpless. Refugee fleets clogged the space lanes. Worlds evacuated. Panic spread faster than the Devourers themselves. The elder species who had laughed at humanity's primitiveness now fled in terror from something they could not understand or fight. Humanity watched from the sidelines. Their observer status meant they received all Council broadcasts, but could not participate in decisions. They saw the casualties. They saw the panic. They saw civilizations that were thousands of years old falling like dominoes. Earth mobilized quietly. The Council did not notice. They were too busy trying to survive. Captain Marcus Reed commanded the research vessel Archimedes. It was a small ship by Council standards. It used primitive sensors and had a crew of only 30. The Council would have called it a toy. But Marcus had served in Earth's Navy for 20 years, and he knew that sometimes simple tools worked better than complex ones. Against direct orders from Earth Command, Marcus took the Archimedes on a survey run near Devourer territory. His crew thought he was crazy. They were probably right. "We're a research ship," said his science officer, Dr. Lisa Park. "We don't have weapons. We don't have shields. If they see us, then we run, Marcus said. But we have to look. The Council's sensors are too sophisticated. They're looking for quantum signatures and dimensional anomalies. Maybe that's the problem. The Archimedes crept along the edge of the dead zone, that was what they called it now. The dead zone, where the Devourers fed for 3 days. They watched from a distance. They recorded everything. Marcus used every sensor on the ship, even the old ones. The radar, the LiDAR, the basic electromagnetic scanners that Earth ships had used for centuries, and then Lisa saw it. "Captain," she said slowly, I think I found something." The Devourers phased constantly between dimensions. Advanced sensors tried to track them across quantum states, but simple sensors, crude sensors, just watched what they could see, and what they could see was a pattern. Every 12 seconds, the Devourers solidified completely into normal space for a fraction of a second, 0.3 seconds to be exact. A tiny window. A moment of vulnerability, are you sure? Marcus asked. Lisa ran the analysis 17 times. I'm sure. They have a rhythm. When they phase back into our dimension, they're solid for 0.3 of a second. Then they disappear again. Marcus immediately transmitted the data to Earth and to the Council. Earth's military command received it and started running battle simulations immediately. They saw the possibilities. The Council received the data too, but it came from humans. Primitive humans with their primitive sensors and their primitive understanding of the universe. A Cremathi analyst filed it as unverified data from an observer species and moved on to more important matters. The Council did not have time for human theories. They were busy fortifying their core worlds. They assembled the greatest armada in galactic history, 12,000 ships from 100 different species. The final line, they called it. The last defense. Humanity was not invited to join the final line. The Council still did not take them seriously. That was their mistake. In 6 weeks, they would realize just how badly they had miscalculated. In 6 weeks, the primitive primates would do what no elder civilization could do. In 6 weeks, everything would change, but first humanity had to prepare. And humans were very good at preparing for impossible fights. They had been doing it for their entire history. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the carrier Indomitable and looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed devourer swarms. Blue markers showed human positions. There was a lot more red than blue. 203 ships, said Commander Hayes. That's our entire fleet, against thousands of those things. 203 ships that they think are worthless, Elena said, which means they're not paying attention to us. That's an advantage. Half the galaxy had fallen in 2 months. The Devourers consumed everything in their path. The Council's final line protected the core worlds with 12,000 ships. It was impressive. It was massive. Elena suspected it would not be enough, because the Council was still trying to fight with their advanced technology. They were still trying to predict quantum states and track dimensional anomalies. They were thinking like civilizations that had ruled for thousands of years. Humanity thought differently. Show me, Marcus. Reads data again, Elena ordered. The display showed the Devourer phasing pattern. 12 seconds. Phase out, phase in for 0.3 seconds. Phase out again, over and over, like a heartbeat. Our weapons are too slow, Hayes said. By the time our targeting computers calculate the phase window, it's already gone. Then we don't use computers, Elena said. The bridge went quiet. Admiral, Hayes said carefully, computers are too slow. AI prediction systems are too complex. They're trying to think ahead, trying to predict. But this isn't about prediction. It's about reaction, about instinct. Elena turned to face her crew. We need manual targeting. Human pilots, human reflexes. A young tactical officer spoke up. That's insane. No offense, Admiral, but the timing has to be perfect. 0.3 of a second. That's impossible. Difficult, Elena corrected. Not impossible. Humans have good reflexes, better than people think. We evolved hunting prey and avoiding predators. We can react to patterns. We just need to feel the rhythm. She called a meeting of all ship captains. The holographic conference room filled with faces. Some looked skeptical. Some looked desperate. All of them looked tired. Here's the situation, Elena said. The Council is not going to beat these things with advanced technology. We've seen that. So we're going to beat them with primitive technology, with the kind of weapons our ancestors used. She brought up the weapons specifications, railguns, electromagnetic accelerators that fired simple tungsten rods at a fraction of light speed. No fancy plasma. No quantum warheads. Just metal moving very fast. These are dumb weapons, she continued. No guidance systems. No tracking. You point and shoot. But they're fast. Fast enough to hit a 0.3 second window if the timing is perfect. Captain Okonkwo of the destroyer. Relentless leaned forward. You want us to manually target these things? While they're phasing in and out of reality? Yes, that's suicide. Maybe, Elena agreed. But it's the only chance we've got. And more importantly, it's a chance. That's more than the Council has. She explained the training regimen. Every pilot would drill the rhythm. Count to 12. Fire. Count to 12. Fire. Over and over until it became instinct, until they could do it without thinking. You'll fly in patterns, she said, weaving through their formations. Your fighters are small enough that they might not notice you at first. When you feel the rhythm, you fire. Simple tungsten rounds, right through their centers during the phase window. The captains looked at each other. It sounded crazy. It probably was crazy. But crazy was better than helpless. While the pilots trained, Earth's engineers worked on something even crazier. Project Hephaestus, a network of satellites that could generate a gravitational shear field. The theory said it might trap the Devourers partially in normal space, disrupt their phasing, give the human pilots a better chance. Dr. Sarah Kim led the project. She had been working on gravity manipulation for 15 years. The Council considered her research primitive. Human understanding of gravity was centuries behind their own, but Sarah had an advantage. She did not think like a Council scientist. She thought like a human. She took shortcuts. She made guesses. She broke rules that the elder species considered fundamental. Will it work? Elena asked her. Sarah looked exhausted. She had not slept in 3 days. I don't know. The math says yes, but we've never tested it at this scale. It might trap them for 30 seconds. It might do nothing. It might blow up the satellites and kill everyone nearby. Honest answer. I appreciate that. Elena put her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Build it anyway. We need every edge we can get. 2 weeks later, the training was complete. 800 fighter pilots had drilled the rhythm until they dreamed about it. They could count to 12 in their sleep. Some of them probably did. The human fleet positioned itself in the Proxima sector, not with the Council's final line, not in the core worlds, out on the flank where the Devourers were moving to cut off the Council's retreat. Proxima had human colonies. 50 million people, children, families, scientists and farmers and artists. The Council had written them off. The evacuation ships would never arrive in time. The Council sent a message to Admiral Vasquez. It was from the Keithrai commander of the final line. Human fleet, you are out of position. Fall back to defensive parameters. You cannot win this engagement. Retreat while you still can. Elena recorded her response carefully. She wanted to get it exactly right. Negative. We're not retreating. We're not falling back. This is where we make our stand. She paused. Tell the Council to watch. They wanted to see what humans could do. They're about to find out. She closed the transmission and looked at her crew. They were young. Too young. But they were ready. They were human. That would have to be enough. All ships, she broadcast to the fleet. All pilots, this is it. 2,000 Devourers are coming. They've destroyed everything in their path. Every advanced civilization has failed to stop them. Every sophisticated weapon has proven worthless. She took a breath. But we're not sophisticated. We're primitive. We use chemical rockets and metal bullets. We rely on instinct and reflexes. We count to 12 and pull a trigger. And that's exactly why we're going to win. The tactical display showed the Devourers approaching, a dark cloud of death moving between dimensions, unstoppable. Activate Hephaestus, Elena ordered. All fighters prepare to launch. Today we show the galaxy what humans do when someone needs help. We stand in the breach, we fight, and we never quit. The Devourers were 3 hours away, the galaxy was watching, and humanity was ready. The Devourers came like a storm made of darkness. 2,000 of them, each the size of a moon, materialized at the edge of the Proxima sector. They moved between dimensions, flickering in and out of reality. The sight of them made experienced pilots grip their controls tighter. Lieutenant Jake Morrison sat in his fighter cockpit and tried to control his breathing. He was 24 years old. He had joined the Navy to explore space, not to fight monsters that should not exist. But here he was. All pilots, this is indomitable control. Stand by for Hephaestus activation in 30 seconds. Jake looked at his weapons display. 4 railguns, simple electromagnetic accelerators. The same basic technology that humans had used for 300 years. Nothing fancy, nothing sophisticated, just tungsten rods that went very fast. Hephaestus active in 10 seconds. Jake's hands were steady now. He had trained for this. He knew the rhythm. 12 seconds. 3/10 vulnerability window. He could do this. Hephaestus active. Now. Throughout the Proxima sector, 200 satellites came online simultaneously. They generated a gravitational field unlike anything attempted before. Space itself rippled. The field spread out like a net made of invisible force. The Devourers hit the field and something changed. Their smooth phasing became disrupted. They slowed. For the first time since they had appeared in the galaxy, the Devourers were forced to exist primarily in normal space. "It's working," someone shouted over the comm. Admiral Vasquez's voice cut through the celebration. "We have 30 seconds before Hephaestus overloads. All fighters launch now." 800 human fighters launched from their carriers. They looked small against the massive Devourers. They looked insignificant, but they moved with purpose and precision. Jake's fighter accelerated. Around him, his squadron formed up. They had practiced this formation hundreds of times. They flew in a weaving pattern, making themselves harder targets. "Remember your training," said Squadron Leader Chen. "Feel the rhythm. Don't think, react." The Devourers noticed the fighters. They began to move, to attack. Tendrils of dark matter lashed out. The human ships dodged and weaved. Jake started, counting. 1, 2, 3. His fingers rested on the firing controls. 4, 5, 6. His eyes watched the Devourer ahead of him. 7, 8, 9. It was phasing, flickering between solid and transparent. 10, 11, 12. Fire. 4 tungsten rods launched from his fighter at a significant fraction of light speed. They crossed the distance in a heartbeat. The Devourer phased into normal space for 0.3 seconds. The rods hit it during that window. The creature convulsed. Dark matter erupted from the impact points. The Devourer's phasing became erratic. It was hurt. "Actually hurt. Confirmed kill," Control announced. "The primitive kinetics are working." All across the battlefield, human pilots found their rhythm. 12, fire. 12, fire. It became instinct. It became dance. They flew through swarms of Devourers, counting and firing, dodging and attacking. But the Devourers were learning too. They began phasing faster, making their patterns irregular. Some human pilots lost the rhythm. Their shots missed, and when shots missed, the Devourers struck back. "Fighter down," someone screamed. "Martinez is gone." "Keep firing," Chen ordered. "Maintain formation." More fighters died, dozens of them. The Devourers adapted quickly. Their phasing became harder to predict. Human pilots who had mastered the rhythm suddenly found it changing. Jake saw 3 fighters from Delta Squadron get torn apart by dark matter tendrils. He gritted his teeth and kept flying. Kept counting. Kept firing. The Hephaestus satellites began to fail. One by one, they overloaded and exploded. The gravitational field weakened. The Devourers' phasing stabilized. They were becoming harder to hit again. Hephaestus down to 40%, Control reported. 20%. 10%. The field collapsed. The Devourers returned to their full phasing ability. The human fighters were suddenly much more vulnerable. "All ships, this is Reed aboard Archimedes." It was Marcus Reed, the captain who had first discovered the phasing pattern. "I've found something. There's a big one. Bigger than the others. I think it's coordinating the swarm." The tactical display updated. Deep in the Devourer formation, one creature stood out. It was 3 times the size of the others, and its phasing pattern was different. 20 seconds between phases. Only 0.1 seconds of vulnerability. "That's the queen," Marcus said. "Kill her and the swarm loses coordination." 0.1 seconds, Elena said quietly on the command channel. "That's half our normal window. Can anyone even hit that?" Jake stared at the tactical display. 0.1 seconds. That was almost impossible. Even the best pilots had trained for 0.3 seconds. This was something else entirely. "I'll take the shot," Elena said. "Prepare a nuclear warhead." "I'll time it manually," the bridge crew protested. Using a nuclear weapon that close to your own ships was insane. But Elena was already running calculations. The Queen's pattern was steady. 20 seconds. Point one window. She could feel it. The warhead was loaded. A crude fusion bomb. 200 megatons. The kind of weapon the Council considered laughably primitive. It was mounted on a missile that used chemical propulsion. Ancient technology. Elena launched it herself. The missile accelerated toward the Queen. Elena counted. She felt the rhythm in her bones. 20 seconds. She had to time the detonation perfectly. Around the battlefield, human pilots continued fighting. More fighters died every minute, but they kept going. They kept counting and firing. They were down to 400 fighters now, then 300. Elena reached 20. She triggered the detonation. The warhead exploded exactly as the Queen materialized in normal space. The nuclear fireball engulfed the massive creature at the exact moment it was vulnerable. For 0.1 seconds, the Queen was solid. For 0.1 seconds, it was mortal. The explosion vaporized it. The effect on the swarm was immediate. Without the Queen's coordination, the other devourers' phasing became chaotic. They flickered randomly. Some stayed solid for full seconds. Some disappeared completely. They were confused, vulnerable. All fighters pressed the attack. Elena ordered.
They're disorganized. Hit them now!
The remaining human pilots threw everything they had at the devourers. With the phasing patterns disrupted, hitting them became easier. Tungsten rods found targets. Devourers died. One by one, the creatures fell. The swarm that had seemed unstoppable began to break apart. Some devourers tried to flee. Human fighters pursued them. The battle became a rout. When the last devourer died, Jake's fuel gauge was nearly empty. His railguns were out of ammunition. He was exhausted, but he was alive. Battle over, Control announced. Proxima is secure. All surviving fighters returned to carriers. Jake looked at his squadron display. He had started the battle with 12 fighters. 4 were returning. 8 pilots were dead. People he had trained with, eaten with, joked with across the fleet. The casualties were counted. Of 203 ships, 89 remained. 4,000 pilots had died. It was the bloodiest battle in human history. But Proxima held. 50 million humans lived, and the route to the Council's final line remained open. The galaxy had watched the entire battle. Every species had seen what the primitive humans had done, what they had sacrificed, what they had achieved when every advanced civilization had failed. The devourers had seemed unstoppable until they met humanity. 3 months after the Battle of Proxima, Ambassador Sarah Chen returned to the Galactic Council chambers. The last time she had stood here, the Council had laughed at humanity. They had called humans primitive, emotional, unready. Nobody was laughing now. Sarah walked into the chamber and something unprecedented happened. Every representative stood. All 847 species rose from their seats in silence. It was a gesture of respect so profound that Sarah almost stopped walking. The Vartek Archon stepped down from his platform. Sarah had never seen him leave his position before. He approached her slowly, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber's lights. "Ambassador Chen," he said. His voice no longer sounded like breaking glass. It sounded humble. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, on behalf of all civilizations that still exist, I offer you the crystal bow." He bent forward in the traditional Vartek gesture of ultimate respect. The gesture was reserved for those who had saved entire civilizations. Sarah had read about it. She had never expected to see it performed for a human. "The Council was wrong about your species," the Archon continued. "We measured you by our standards, by technology and advancement. We did not see your true strength. You saved us when we could not save ourselves. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid." The Kramathi scholar spoke next. Her forearms were folded in their species' sign of contrition. "We called you children. We said you were too emotional. We were fools. Your emotions are your strength, your refusal to give up, your loyalty to each other, your courage in the face of impossible odds. These things saved us." The Sarl's telepathic voice touched Sarah's mind, but it was gentle now, respectful. "We said you felt too much. We were wrong. Feeling is not weakness. It is what makes you human. And being human, we have learned, is something worthy of great respect." The Kethri warrior diplomat stood. His orange eyes glowed with something that might have been shame. "I told you that courage without wisdom was foolishness. I was wrong. You showed us that sometimes courage is wisdom, That sometimes the willingness to stand and fight is the wisest choice of all. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council. More than that, they were offered a seat on the High Command, the youngest species ever to be given military authority over elder races. But Sarah surprised them all. "We accept membership with gratitude and humility," she said. "But we decline the High Command seat." Shocked whispers rippled through the chamber. "Ambassador Chen," the Archon said carefully, "the seat is offered as recognition of your military achievements, of your strategic thinking. Your species earned this," Sarah smiled. "We didn't fight to rule you. We didn't sacrifice 4,000 pilots so we could give orders to elder species. We fought because it was the right thing to do. Because when someone needs help, you help them, even if they laughed at you, even if they dismissed you. That's what makes us human." She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of species. "We're happy to serve on the council as equals. We'll share our knowledge, we'll contribute our ideas, but we won't command you. That's not why we're here." The silence in the chamber was profound. Then the Kethri began to clap. It was a human gesture, but he had learned it. Others joined in. Soon the entire chamber echoed with applause in 100 different forms, sounds and lights and telepathic approval. After the formal session ended, the Kethri diplomat approached Sarah privately. Up close he was even more impressive. Scales like armor, claws that could tear through steel, eyes that had seen 1,000 battles. "Walk with me," he said. They walked through the station's observation deck. Outside, ships from dozens of species moved through space. Many were heading to Earth. They carried supplies, aid for the colonies, gifts of gratitude. "When I first met your species," the Kethri said, "I thought I understood you. You reminded me of young warriors, brave but inexperienced. I thought time would either temper you or destroy you." He looked out at the stars. "I was wrong. Your species doesn't need tempering. You don't have claws or armor or natural weapons. You don't have telepathy or advanced technology. But you have something we never fully understood." "What's that?" Sarah asked. "You have heart," he said simply. "When faced with impossible odds, you don't calculate probabilities. You don't retreat to fight another day. You stand between danger and those who need protection. You do it instinctively. It's not strategy. It's who you are." He turned to face her. "The galaxy will face other threats. There will be other wars, other crises. And now we know something we didn't know before. When darkness comes, humanity will stand in the breach. Not because you're the strongest. Not because you're the smartest. But because someone has to, and humans never learned how to quit." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. She didn't wipe them away. Humans felt things. That was not weakness. That was strength. On Earth, at the memorial wall in Geneva, Marcus Reed stood with his daughter. The wall was massive. 4,000 names were carved into black stone. Every pilot who died at Proxima. Every crew member who sacrificed themselves so others could live. "Daddy, why are there so many names?" his daughter asked. She was 7 years old. Marcus knelt down beside her. "Because sometimes people have to fight for what's right. Even when it's scary. Even when it's dangerous. These people fought so that you could be safe. So that millions of others could be safe. Were they heroes?" Marcus thought about Jake Morrison, who had been afraid but flew anyway. About squadron leader Chen, who kept fighting even when her squad mates died. About Admiral Vasquez, who had timed a nuclear detonation by counting in her head. "Yes," he said, "they were heroes. The very best kind. The kind who were scared but did it anyway." His daughter touched one of the names on the wall. "What are you thinking about, Daddy?" Marcus looked up at the sky. Ships from across the galaxy orbited Earth now. Species that had once laughed at humanity now came to pay respects, to learn, to thank. "I'm thinking about the future," he said. "The galaxy will face other threats. There will be other battles. But now they know something important. They know that when darkness comes, when everything seems lost, humanity will be there." "Why?" his daughter asked. "Because we're human," Marcus said simply. "We protect, we help. We stand up when others fall down. We never learned when to quit, and that's not going to change." Around Earth, a fleet of ships from 1,000 different species hung in space. They had come to honor the memorial, to remember the sacrifice. Some had sent representatives to speak at the ceremony. Others simply transmitted their gratitude across all frequencies. The galaxy had laughed at humans once. They had called them primitive and emotional and weak. They had dismissed humanity as children playing at being civilized. They would never make that mistake again. Because when extinction came for the galaxy, when the impossible threat consumed system after system, when every advanced civilization failed to stop it, humanity had stood in the breach. With primitive weapons and stubborn courage, with simple tactics and unbreakable will, the galaxy learned an important lesson. Technology was not everything. Advancement was not strength. Sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe was the simple refusal to give up. Sometimes the most powerful thing was being human. And humanity, the youngest species in the galaxy, had shown everyone what that truly meant.